Commies Need Not Apply. I'm your host, Jason, and today with me is Lauren Peña. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, y'all. My name is Lauren B. Peña. I am running for United States Congress in Austin, Texas, against the Progressive Caucus Chair, Greg Casar. I'm a little bit different than a lot of the candidates that have come before me, and probably most of them ever. I am a survivor of human trafficking. I was in human trafficking for 10 years, and I am currently residing in federal housing projects here on the east side of Austin, Texas, having my civil rights violated.
Well, I wasn't expecting you to lead with that, Lauren, but I guess we might as well dive right in. Tell us about what you learned, because obviously human trafficking is a huge issue with the border and in Texas. So I'm sure you have the ability to speak with authority on, the horrors. I mean, obviously, don't go too PG-13 or whatever, but just tell us about tackling that issue head on, your experience and what you'd plan to do to fix it.
Yeah, so my number two priority is actually combating human trafficking at the federal level. I'm not sure what it's like in your area, but here in Texas, we have a lot of adult entertainment clubs. And unfortunately, and you might not like this, but I'm here to tell the truth and the dirty part of it. I'm not Kamala Harris, but I was born into the middle class. And when I when I was
Careful with that
sorry,
laugh.
I know, right? When I was when I was 16, I got pregnant and my parents kicked me out. So I found myself homeless and pregnant at 16. And at that time, I was in the suburban areas and things like that. Well, the resources that they have in the city, they didn't really have there at the time. And my school did something even worse and kind of handed me a diploma and said, "We don't want that image in our school," and sent me out the door. So by 19, I found myself in the inner city streets, um, homeless, and I actually ended up being around gangs and things like that, unfortunately. And so, to be bluntly honest, they had me in a club, but I wasn't necessarily responsible for doing all of the things that the other girls were doing. I was I guess the person that was providing the party favors to the other club goers and the patrons. And let me say, by the way, there are a lot of high priority people that would attend these establishments and, engage in that. And one day, one of the state senators here in Texas was my regular client for the party favors. He needed to get more, and I was unable to provide that. And so he looked at the manager and he said, "Fire her now." And the manager did that because the managers are paid very well by the girls, the patrons, and of course, high profile people that come into the clubs for secrecy and things like that. And so after I was fired, I was no longer as useful to the group of people as I was before. And so that's what kind of led to me being, trafficked inside of the clubs here in Austin and San Antonio. Unfortunately, a lot of there's a lot of shady clubs around that you don't necessarily need an ID or a social security card, and underage girls are in there.
Hmm.
There's been several clubs that have gotten in trouble in San Antonio for those things, but I don't think that authorities really understand how deep and widespread the problem is, because these type of environments are really ran by organized crime and gangs and things like that. And so what I would like to see happen, which I think would be beneficial for a lot of parties: one, the taxpayers; two, the Department of Labor; and three, victims and girls that might not even realize that they're victims. If instead of it being freelance inside of the clubs, the girls were required to be an employee, even like a waitress, how sometimes people do for what, like 213 an hour, 217 an hour, be required to clock in and out, and have the managers and the girls have to report their tips or income. I think that that would be really beneficial, because a lot of times people are receiving public social services and things like that, but that income is completely under the table. So they might make a couple $1,000s a night, but they're still receiving, social benefits that the taxpayers are paying for. And like I said, the management there, it's really like a reverse money laundering scheme.
Hmm.
So I think that it would benefit everyone, if the federal level of government passed something requiring that girls that are in these clubs to be W-2, or to not be W-2 workers, that they actually need to be considered employees and clock in and out. Because at the end of the day, I don't think that a lot of traffickers would be very happy about that. They're not going to want the girls' names on paper. They're not going to want income reported. And it's going to make the number of jobs look a little different. So I know we saw, I guess recently with the Trump administration, they had criticized the report that had come out about the employment rate and things like that. I think that that employment rate would look a lot different too if they considered how many of these girls, and it's a lot, are really working in these clubs. There's some that, there's 100, 200 working a night in just one club. And those people are, they're not employed technically, but they are making substantial income.
So your idea is to end the scourge of sex trafficking by making it required that it has to be above the books, and thereby incentivizing these shady dealers to not do it because they don't. I've heard different takes about, oh, let's legalize sex work and like make it something that's like a whole industry, and then other people being like, no, like it's immoral and not Christian, and so interesting. That's your second most important
Well,
thing.
and so hear me out. I am very, very against any sex work or anything like that. These are specifically clubs that they're dance clubs.
Mm,
Okay, so these girls are dancers. They're not, sex workers,
okay.
although a lot of bad things are happening
But
there.
the party favors you're talking about are, just euphemism for illicit acts, right? I assume?
Correct. And I
Okay.
mean, I all that needs to stop. I don't get me wrong. I have a big chip on my shoulder towards people as far as party favors. It's
Yeah, yeah.
it's it's bad for society. It breaks down American families. I'm really, really excited about the border getting shut down by the Trump administration, but I have to tell you, I am in fear that some woke leftists like AOC we're seeing is considered running for president. Like, what happens if these people get into office again? They're just going to erase everything that the
Hmm.
Trump administration has done. And so I'm pretty nervous about that.
Sure. So you're talking about, all of that experience about living in the inner cities and the projects and having a child, and then being in these clubs. But obviously now you find yourself running for one of the new Texas districts. So tell us the story of,
Yeah.
I guess, how you got out of that, and how you're improving your life and the lives of the people around you.
So this is a kind of a big complex question, but so to start it from the beginning, around January of 2023, I actually got put on the Austin Public Safety Commission. I wanted to be on this commission because the crime in the inner city, obviously, and inside the projects is surging. We're having homeless that are being shipped in from other states into our city using our resources. And so I have friends in all these little organizations and stuff that I speak to and get like the direct opinion from the actual workers, and they say the people will not tell them exactly where they're coming from, just that they're coming from out of state. And so I go in and get on the Austin Public Safety Commission, end up getting removed because of my political affiliation. No
Oof.
joke. No
Really?
joke. Yes, and so I was the only conservative, and they weren't having me on the Austin Public Safety Commission, which, by the way, being in the inner city, I don't know how it is right there where you're at. I mean, they were so big on defund the police, and
Oof.
my Democrat opponent, who's the Progressive Caucus chair, is actually the one that defunded the Austin Police Department in 2020 while he was on city council. So it started there, and they kind of made a monster out of me, a political monster. Like, I'm like,
They
you
know
tried
what
to shut
they
me
know not
down?
what they've done. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I, at that point start getting involved with party politics. And then I start doing what everybody says and follow the money, follow the money. Well, during all of this, as I mentioned before, me and my community are having our civil rights violated. So here, they're not even, following laws as far as like ADA accommodations and things like that. So they're breaking the law in that way. And the living conditions are bad. We have mold in the ceiling, rodents, like roaches everywhere. The homeless come in and bang on our doors all night. And I'm a survivor, so I have PTSD. So it definitely exacerbates my symptoms when I'm trying to sleep at night and I'm having homeless people bang on my door. And so I just continue my journey. By so I had mentioned that my school kicked me out when I was 16 and pregnant, basically. Well, until 2020, I had really only had a ninth grade education. So as soon as I got housed by the housing authority in 2020, I began going to school. So I'm proud to say that I now have my bachelor's of political science, my paralegal certification from UT, and I'm working on my master's of public policy. But
Congrats.
thank you, as soon as I got my paralegal certification from the University of Texas, I began using that knowledge in real time. Obviously, I can't represent clients and things like that, but there are a lot of things that you can do, and a lot of people don't realize just being able to draft a really good letter on someone's behalf, advocating for them, can go a long way. And being able to, point them in the right direction to get the legal assistance that they need and things like that, it helps a lot in my community. Because these things are not just happening to me and my family, they're happening to all of the residents. Um, but I ended up founding a nonprofit legal advocacy center, Peña Legal Advocacy, and I was going to apply to get grants and things like that. So when I say follow the money, I started realizing that the amount of fraud in the nonprofits here in the city of Austin and with the NGOs and things like that is so high that I couldn't even take the grants because I couldn't have it on my soul. Honestly, I'm like, I don't want to be aligned with this. I don't
Yeah,
want
the
anybody
fraud
to.
was higher than the homeless people.
Yeah. Yes. That's great. That was good. Yeah, it's true. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna have to volunteer my heart out. So since July of 2023, I have been volunteering about 50 hours a week in my community, one form or another, whether it be testifying at the Texas Senate, the Texas House of Representatives, down, at City Hall, organizing people, engaging in party politics. 50 hours a
Yeah,
week. And
party politics, not party favors. We like party.
yes. Yes, very much so. Party politics. And by now I have like four federal lawsuits just, waiting to go through the process and things like that. Like my fair housing claims are supposed to take 100 days. I'm on 4 years. Like the city
Whoa.
just does not care. Yeah. And you know, I have a big lawsuit put together, whatever, that I'm doing for myself, but like this could be like the mega, mega class action lawsuit for a lot of people, right?
Hmm.
But the thing is that I'm not an attorney. And so everybody's like, just take it to an attorney. It's going to be a heyday. And I'm like, no, like
Yeah, the
these still.
attorneys aren't gonna do anything. They're so corrupt.
Right, right. So, as you mentioned that, you're absolutely right. So, there are other nonprofit legal places here in Austin to help people like me, people in my community. But once your case gets far enough along, they drop you. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, it's terrible. I'm the only one that I'm aware of that has continued to keep up with the process after they dropped me because honestly, I'm probably the only one that has the capacity.
Hmm.
Um, and it's really unfortunate. And so I'm really ready for, you know, all these whistles I've been blowing to go off, but I do have to tell you, guess what happened last week in the city of Austin?
Oh gosh, what happened?
The Department of Justice is investigating discriminatory hiring practices within the city. And I'm so excited. I'm like, yes, they're
Because that's
finally
what you
hearing
wanted.
us. Oh, yes. And I'm like, they're going to find so much more. Like,
That's Pandora's box right there, huh?
yeah. So during the redistricting hearings, I literally one time, let's see, it's not near me, but I have a stack of evidence this big of all of the fraud, waste, and abuse that my family has been used as a conduit for the city of Austin since 2020. It's absolutely like ridiculous and damning. And so when I'm at one of these redistricting hearings, I take out my stack of papers and I set it on the table and I'm like, in here, you're going to find numerous violations to federal law, fraud, and ADA non-compliance. And I need a district that covers my city because I don't have any representation. Like, all of my representatives are Democrats and none of
Mm,
them cared to help. And so it's just a common denominator. But ultimately, I know a lot of people might be like, well, how does this affect me? I don't live in the projects. I'm here to tell you it 100% affects you because your taxpayer dollars are funding it. And another thing that's a big issue is property taxes. And so that's another big initiative of mine. And
is
people
that your
say,
number
well,
one?
no, my number one is crackdown on crime.
Okay,
But
okay.
I'm thinking about reordering, so we'll see. But so on the property tax thing, a lot of people's argument is you can't just take away property taxes because it's so intertwined with other things that it just would collapse the government or whatever. My thought is, well, as a conservative, we don't want big government. The government was never designed to house people. It was never meant to take care of people like that. The federal government was just meant for, national protection and commerce and things like that. It was not meant to house people. So if we take away all of these social programs from the federal government, I think that that can supplement the property tax with the taxpayers' dollars. You get what I'm saying? So instead of them funding these social programs, it would be like a kind of change for the property tax. You get what I'm trying to say?
That instead of paying super high property taxes, you would be paying the social programs directly?
No, instead of paying any of the social programs, like so they
Okay,
can
so that would
yeah.
cover the okay, that's interesting. Yeah, so I definitely am when so we met in Boston for a youth leadership school, with the Leadership Institute. And I remember it was funny, you were telling me that you were talking with someone, you had your little name tag that said Republican, and, someone's like, "Oh, Republican," and you're like, "Yeah, but I grew up in the projects." So, it definitely seems like not the type of campaign you'd expect. You usually expect the stodgy milquetoast, like, I'm a conservative, and I have a family values, and, white picket fence and 2 kids," and you're like, "Yeah, like, I got pregnant at 16," and, you know, when you're thinking about representatives, 'cause you're running, are you for a senator or a representative?
US Congress,
You
House.
House, so the House of Representatives. Right, so
Yes.
if we're thinking about representing people, who better than someone who's actually been through it? And your idea isn't, "Oh, like, I'm better than you." It's like, "No, I'm one of you.
Mhm.
I've been through the projects, I know how bad it is, and I have these ideas on how to fix it, and here's how I'm gonna do that." So, that definitely makes you appealing to the people who you yourself would live around. So tell us about your opponents then, and about why, if they're an incumbent, if they haven't done the job right, or if they're a challenger, what separates you and them?
So my Republican primary opponent was a Democrat mayor in California 3 years ago.
Okay, now tell us why that's a bad thing.
Well, if any of your viewers or you know about Texas, we have this thing like "Don't California our Texas," which is, and we're really big on it. Yet for whatever reason, millions of people are coming here from California. That's fine, but they're also running for office. And so my question is like, why is she running as a Republican when she was just a Democrat mayor in California 3 years ago? And what's most interesting to me is she's running on the exact same platform. Her ideas have not changed, just the letter before her name has
Mm,
changed. And it's, stuff about like the economy and small businesses and like some equality stuff. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with those things, but you were a mayor in California. Like, why, like, flee from the bluest state to try to come to Texas and run as a Republican? And I think that her reasoning behind that is that she'll be more appealing to her people. But here's the thing, and I didn't mention, Austin, Texas is in the district that I'm running for is the bluest one in Texas. It is deep, deep, deep blue. The Democrats believe that they have the seat sewed up, but they weren't expecting someone who's been here since they were 19 years old with a big untapped voter base to come out and be a conservative. And
So
so
you're shaking things up.
oh, more than shaking. I'm building a new seat at this table. Like,
Heck yeah. Well, literally and
yeah,
figuratively, because it's the new district that you're running for, correct? With the giant
yes.
yeah.
And it's the district that I fought for. I testified at every single one of the Texas redistricting hearings in the House and the Senate, besides one in Houston, Texas. I didn't make that one, but in every single one, I was like, look, my civil rights are being violated in this way. So is my community. We don't have any representation. We need inner city representation. And sure enough, I was able to fight and my voice was heard. And they gave me the district that covers the city. And what I'm going to be able to do with that is go into all of the housing projects in the city of Austin and get those people to vote for the first time in 40 years because they haven't voted in 40 years, but they're darn sure not going to vote for anyone else because they haven't, but they will, vote for someone who is one of them, who knows their struggles,
Mm.
knows what it's like. And so I am a threat to the Democrats. I call myself a Democrat's worst nightmare because my
You're gonna
my
be a
demo
Peña their butts. Like a
I
pain in their
like that.
butts. Maybe that's your
Yeah.
campaign slogan?
I love it. That's a cute
A
idea.
pain in their butts.
I
I don't
love
know.
it. I'm gonna make a social media post of that when we get off here.
Okay.
Very good. Yeah, and so I don't believe that I'm going to have a challenging time during my primary. A little bit because establishment Republicans are definitely turned off by me because I don't have anybody that's pulling my strings. I'm not under the control of anyone. I am, you know, a hard worker. I mean, I've been working 50 hours a week for I don't know how many years since July of 2023 in poverty, like not even having my basic needs met. And I've been able to figure out every step of the way how to, I guess, hustle what I need to hustle, just like finding the education I needed to. I was able to apply for scholarships and get the education that I needed to do. And so I know a lot of people are sitting here saying that the American dream doesn't exist anymore and things like that. Well, I'm here to call baloney because if you put enough hard work and effort and time into it, like I have, I mean, you might be turning the bluest district in Austin, Texas, in the state of Texas, red.
Well, I mean, you know my mission, and you know I have a heart for Massachusetts and trying to, also do the same. And so it's really interesting um, to see that you're running this campaign where it seems like the odds are stacked against you. But I would say it's a strength to the grassroots voter base that the establishment rhino Republicans are not going after you, and a real threat to the Democrats because for they've assumed this in Massachusetts, they've assumed this anywhere. Like, oh yeah, urban centers, that's just blue. And so, there almost seems to be like a dark horse candidate thing of like, unless they've really got their ears to the ground, they're kind of not expecting you.
Yeah, and so I can't speak on Massachusetts, but I
I
can
know.
tell you in 2024, I was working on somebody's campaign and I met a couple of other Republicans, things like that. They told me that there was an unwritten agreement that Democrats get the cities and Republicans stay out of them. So like they told me that the intent of their
Yo.
party was to stay out of the cities. And I'm like, real lives are suffering, taxpayers are suffering, like people are being taxed out of their house and home. It's ridiculous and it's all because of these Marxist socialist programs, and I am the epitome of failed socialism in America, which is sad that you have to say, but there is
Mm.
socialism in America right now.
And so, what would that look like in still fulfilling the needs of your constituency, but also not through the federal bloat and bureaucracy? You are running for you'd be going to Washington, D.C., you'd be a federal representative for Texas. Um, so talk to me about your vision for what would a thriving inner city look like? Would the community services be supplemented by like churches and actual like community getting together rather than these like top down federal programs? How would you
You
incentivize and
absolutely
make that happen?
You absolutely have it right. Okay, so here's my plan, and I think it would be very, very beneficial. So right now, as it is, we would end public housing, take all the people that are in public housing, Section 8 them out. Because right now, what they do is they have public housing and they're all in the same area, located in different parts of the city, where all of the crime, all of the drugs, all of the bad things are happening, and they're centralized into one place. And what that does is not only is it a pattern of dependency and generational decline for these families, it's also, like the broken windows theory. And these kids are growing up, and after so many generations, they have no idea any other lifestyle. So what we do is Section 8 everybody out that's in public
Can
housing,
you explain
spread.
Section 8 for people who may
Okay.
not know?
Yeah. So Section 8 is different in public housing. So for public housing, everybody lives in the same place. They're all in the same apartments or same blocks. But Section 8 is a voucher that you can literally take with you wherever you want to live. So
Mm,
say you find an apartment or a house that's $2,000 a month, and you have a voucher that's $1,200 a month. You take that voucher, you move into the house or the apartment that you desire, and you pay the difference. And
okay.
so what that would be able to do is to, and I think they used to call it like redlining or something. And I feel like it's kind of similar to that, like having all the housing projects in the same place. But what that
Yeah.
would do, yeah, it would take all of these people like me, especially, you know, if we're a little bit rougher sometimes, but spread us out and not have all the crime centralized in one
And
place.
have the
But I
freedom to go where you want to go and build a lay down roots and break that generational trauma and that cycle.
Absolutely. And I would also recommend, and this will definitely get a lot of pushback from the Democrats, but stop all the applications. So, because obviously that is a buttload of money if everybody in public housing got vouchered out. But stop all the applications. So only the people that are currently in public housing get that and they move around. And then, as people age, so what would it be like another 30 years? That program would be eliminated, and we would do exactly what you said and have not the federal government, not the state government, but the local government handle the needs of their community. And so churches, community centers, things like that handle the needs of their community because they're right there, and they're going to have a better understanding of what the needs of the community are. But when you have Section 8 in public housing and food stamps and Medicaid coming from the federal government, there's such a big disconnect there. I mean, I can guarantee I'm probably going to be the only person in Congress that lives in the projects. I mean, there
Yeah.
might be some from a long time ago, but definitely not now.
Hmm. So you said so that was I know I interrupted you to ask about Section 8 because not everyone knows what that is. So it's important to have a working definition. So your idea is to take what is currently just the public housing where everyone's sort of smoothed into these slums, and put them and empower them to be able to live where they want to live and lay down roots and break that cycle. And I kind of cut you off there. Was that the gist of it?
Absolutely. And and not let anybody else on the waiting list. Find other programs in the local community that can pick up where these programs are dropping off. But
So
like I
eventually
said,
phase out public housing. You said, have a sunset clause where eventually Section 8 would be where the people who are down on their luck or impoverished, that would be how they find housing, not public housing, which is a mess.
correct. And I mean, it wouldn't even need to sunset. It would go away once everybody's passed away in 30, 40, 50 years from now.
And so the people who are currently in public housing, let's say for whatever reason they want to stay in public housing, they would kind of just be grandfathered into the program, but no more new applications.
Absolutely. And so and that's another big thing with property taxes. These properties, they do not pay any property tax.
Mm,
And so the people who are running the properties are less incentivized to keep up with their property in the first place. They don't have good management, things like that. And so if we privatize the buildings that public housing is currently in, which would allow other people from other income levels to move in and other people would move out and things like that. I think just naturally over the course of, 5, 10 years, the environment would improve itself more naturally.
okay. And so these issues about public housing and ending sex trafficking, and then, the crackdown on crime, I'm sure we can all just assume, higher police presence, actually let the police do their job. Basically what Rudy Giuliani did in New York City in the 70s. Um, all of that seems to be really focused on your community, which is amazing as a representative. And maybe I'm just not familiar with the exact mechanics of this. But if you're going to be, in Washington, D.C. at the federal level, you'd also have the capacity to vote on federal bills and to speak in front of the House floor regarding said federal bills. And so I'm just kind of curious about, how are you impacting your local community, which is what you want to do, if the bulk of what you're doing is at the federal level?
Well, we have to, like I said, Austin, Texas is the bluest city in Texas, but it's kind of a model for all the other major cities across the country. So, what we do here in Austin, Texas, what we do in Travis County, what we do in Texas, in our major city, we can do that on all the major cities across the country. So, it wouldn't just help my major city, it would help all the major cities. And I mean, I would like to think that there's more people like me out there that just haven't had the opportunity in public housing or in these programs to get the type of education that I've had to be here in this situation. But I would be willing to bet that once people see me and hear me and see my experiences, it will wake them up themselves saying, wow, if she's doing it, I can do it. And we'll be able to pull more representatives out of the other cities as well. But
Mm.
passing the federal legislation would help those cities anyway.
So your approach would be to pass federal legislation g- to do this plan, and then it would also trickle down to all the other cities. So how do you expect all of the other people? I mean, maybe that's a well. First, I gotta win, and then I gotta govern. But I mean, I definitely know you're passionate about this, but obviously there's you know 99 other. Oh wait, that's senators. 435. Wait, I think that's the electoral college. There's a lot of other representatives in the country that you need to convince to go on your side. But it's interesting is like I'm sure you could convince Republicans because, you are one. But then I'm sure Democrats who, like to pander to the inner cities might be like, hey, that's a good idea. So on that plan, I'd definitely be interested to see how that goes. Um I guess it's just tough because I've never really thought about what that would actually look like as a federal representative, and clearly you've put a lot of thought into what you want to do. Uh, Tell us about other things that you would want to do. Like if you had your dream world, and you could just like do anything, what would you want else to do?
Well, it's the crackdown on crime and law enforcement stuff is really important to me, but something that I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to say I'm not a fan of our public education system, so much so that I am a homeschool parent.
Good.
However, if there was something that I could do that I would require every school to do, I think would be very beneficial is starting in middle school to have mandatory public safety classes
Mm,
because we are in a generation that does not respect the police, especially in the cities and things like that. Especially with people in poverty, people like my community and things like that. We are raised to not trust the police, not to talk to the police, not even to call the police. And so, simple things such as having your firearm holstered and why that's so important and why police want you to do that.
Simple things like having a firearm at all. You don't
Well, I
know how
mean,
bad it is up here in Mass. I mean, in Texas, everyone and their sister can just open carry, but, like, the laws up here are atrocious, and trust me, I'm working on that.
oh my goodness. So you guys can't carry firearms?
W w It's complicated. You need to get a license to carry, and even then, I don't think it's open carry, it has to be concealed carry, and there are tons of rules regarding the triggers and how you're supposed to store it properly and a bunch of hoops that you have to go through. I mean, I'm lucky enough to live in a red town where if I go out and get my like go through the mandatory training classes of, okay, here's how you use the weapon, they'll be like, okay, good for you. But a lot of blue cities, they can kind of just like, oh, no, and you have to basically sit down and beg daddy government, to, like, "Please, can I have my rights?" And if you have to ask permission for something that says "shall not be infringed," I feel like that is a pretty good sign you don't have rights. Um,
Right.
so yeah, no, I definitely encourage. I think your approach of doing it is the right way of doing it. If you're running for a representative, you ought to represent the district and the people that you are for. Um, you've talked about your primary challenger, who was a mayor in California and is now just switched and tries to trick the other. Uh, just says, "Oh, I'm a Republican," but is not actually a rhino. Um, so talk about the incumbent or the who you'd be facing in the general election, assuming you win against that phony rhino mayor.
Yeah, so I would be running. So what happened with redistricting in Texas? There was 37 and 35. They were right next to each other inside Travis County. Well, what happened was they moved 35 down, and now 37 kind of captures a big portion of both of it, right? Well, that was Lloyd Doggett's district, 37, and Greg Casar was 35. And so Lloyd Doggett already said, I'm not going to run again because of this, meaning the seat is going to be Greg Casar's. Um, Greg Casar is the one that defunded the Austin Police Department in 2020. Um, he is the Progressive Caucus chair, so right there with AOC and things like
Who's a
that. So
Democrat
yes, but like the Progressive Caucus chair. So he's like, to me, that's
in
a big leadership.
Texas. So he's a
He's a
Texas.
national.
He's a
He's a
Texas,
national.
but he's a representative in Texas 35, now 37 because of the redistricting, who is a national progressive caucus chair.
Yes, sir.
So he's got lots of money.
He has buttloads of money, but
That's
you know
gonna
what he
be
doesn't have?
the
But you know what
people.
he doesn't have? He doesn't actually have the people. He has paid protesters and lobbyists. Okay.
Mm.
I have actual people that haven't voted in 40 years that I can get to actually come out and vote. And also, there are a lot of disenfranchised, specifically in the gay community right now. The gay community in Austin, Texas is very, very torn because they do not agree with a lot of the far left policies as far as grooming the children and just making such a big scene about it. They're more, I guess you could say, traditional gays, and so they are completely disenfranchised from the Democrat Party. And I'm friends with a lot of them. Like they're like, hey, how can we fix this? Like they're asking me for advice and stuff all the time, and I'm like, well, first of all, you're gonna have to vote for me. But but they're disenfranchised, and they also say you have no idea how hard it is over here on the left, because if you're not the perfect stereotypical, like, far extreme enough leftist, then they are mean. And they do have a lot of
Yeah.
money. Like they just talk about how the bullying and stuff is really bad on their side.
Because they want
And
ideological conformity. They demand that if you agree with 100, you have to agree with 100%, and if you disagree on that 1%, you're a Nazi. Get out of here. And I guess the thing about the conservative side is there is that coalition building. Uh, and so, would it be reasonable to assume that by default, without you know having the campaign that you're running, that a establishment conservative would not try to do the thing that you're doing? They wouldn't. try to make coalitions with the gays, and they wouldn't try to make coalitions with the inner city people. As much as you're saying, party politics over party favors, I think for you, you're kind of trying to break that mold, because the party politics of the rhinos would just entirely avoid the city. So you're doing something entirely new.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. They don't touch the inner city. Like I said, they have that unwritten agreement where they give the cities to the Democrats. But the thing is that our cities are going down the drain. They're falling apart. I mean, we are on the path. Austin, Texas is on the path to be San Francisco very soon. And what's so sad about that is we are the capital of Texas, the actual state capital. And it's very sad to see that in an allegedly red state, our capital is in such dismay. I mean, they have our tax hikes right now. For a property tax, they did a 3.5% increase. For mental health, they did another like 3%. For the school, they did like 3%. And all of these things like coming together, I think it's something like 25% the tax rate is going up like this year. And the only people that can afford to live in the inner city are people in the projects or the really, really rich people. And guess what? The projects outnumbers you, but you're but a lot of people are not going to be able to come walk in my neighborhood and talk to my people.
Right, and so you are one of them, and you walk amongst them. It's almost like undercover patriot type thing. And I guess that's the thing. I've heard a lot of statistics about the inner city, particularly with the black community, that many people will just, oh yeah, I'm a Democrat because my dad was a Democrat, and they don't really think about that. And so obviously the by default they would not vote Republican, but they're not voting Republican, they're voting Lauren.
Right. But what's also like needs to be mentioned is they're not voting at all. Like these people have not voted in a very long time. The ones that do vote in my community are the elderly. The elderly are voting. There's no like middle age, there's no people my age. Like those people are not civically engaged at all. And it's going to be a majority of people my age. And so yeah, they'll be voting me and not so much the party. But if you actually have conversations with these people, like we are all conservative, God, family, guns, like
Hell
like
yeah.
yeah, and it's a misconception to think that we're Democrats for sure. The older ones maybe, but the only Democrat I know in my building, she's 80 years old.
Mm. And even she might vote for you.
Yeah.
Hopefully. So it seems that a lot of the campaign is going to be really inspiring people that the system doesn't have to be broken the way it currently is. Um, but also there's a lot of the voter turnout of not only registering people to vote, but also making sure they get to the polls for you. So how do you anticipate um I mean, obviously, you're going to continue to put in the 50 plus hours a week that you have been doing anyways as a civil rights advocate. Um, but do you anticipate getting other people to join? Like, just talk a bit what the next, this is for the midterms in 26, right?
Yes, sir.
So talk about the timeline. Obviously not revealing too much of your strategy, of course, but like, what are you going to need help with if, say, someone watches this and wants to help you out?
Well, what we have coming up that's planned, and I got to keep some strategy secret, but
Yeah.
I have Make America Clean Again is actually coming to Austin, Texas in November,
Mm,
and so they are going to help us. We're all going to do community effort to clean up the city because unfortunately we are having situations where school kids on the playground are getting stabbed by used needles and things like that. It's terrible. Even in my hallway, there's needles, things like that. I mean, it's just out of control. And which, by the way, we're not one of those cities that's supposed to allow open air drug use. They just do it. And I don't understand how, because it's in our, I guess, our doctrine. Like, we're not one of those cities, but they don't care. And that, well, it's because of the district attorney. When the police arrest someone, he lets them out. Over the past year, there's been almost 300 people that were let out just because they weren't indicted in time, which is absolutely ridiculous. But that's why our police force has their hands tied. But anyways, we're going to do the Make America Clean Again, get the city looking clean. And
Hmm.
obviously that's a conservative movement. And then I'm hoping, fingers crossed, Donald J. Trump and Pam Bondi are listening, that they send in VHS deep into my city and they come and they, they clean that up. And at the same time, I have to tell you, our homeless population is significant. It's growing, but here is the real truth behind it. These people want to be on the street. They don't want to be housed. And so it is a misconception for anybody to think that all of these people are sitting here waiting for housing. No, they're not. They don't want to be housed. They like it on the street. They get to use drugs. They get paid. They sell to use their own habit. Like, they like it there. And I'm not going to say that's every single one of them, but out of the 15 sitting across the street from me right now, they want to be there. But there's thousands, and most of them want to be there. So if we could get a joint effort, something passed by the administration where it is, you have one of two choices. You either go to get clean or you go to jail, like, pick one. And they need to be put in mental health facilities to get sober and to get the underlying cause addressed, and it should no longer be an option. And no, that's not a violation of their fourth amendment right, because they can make a choice. You can go get clean or you can go to jail. And so one of those is obviously a compassionate, choice. Making It's at the point where we need to make people get clean, and we have to do that. So if we could have some sort of an executive order or something with DHS that comes in at the same time, whenever we get the city cleaned up, by the time, November comes around, people are going to be looking around our city like, oh my gosh, we really do need conservative leadership. Look how beautiful our city is. We're not getting stabbed on the bus. People aren't getting murdered on the bus, which is happening here in Austin, Texas as well.
Yeah.
People are getting hurt. The people that are being sent here from out of state, the homeless, they're from new gangs. They're not from gangs that are around here. So, like, the violence is unpredictable because there's no classical, like, hierarchy to check the gangs, unfortunately.
Hmm. So your idea isn't having the, "Oh, I promise that when I get in, I'm gonna be doing this, that, and the other thing." It's, "No, I'm doing this now, and if you like it, vote for me."
Right. And I'm not gonna stop. So, like, my voice will not be silenced. I've realized, and I've come to see that the reason I went through so many horrific experiences in my life is for this very reason. I will not be silenced. I will not stop. Um, and I think that a lot of people have started to realize the more they push back on me, it strokes my ego and it makes me go harder. So please keep
S
hating, because you are you're making me go.
Anti-fragile. The more they try to silence you, the more you stand up in defiance and say, "No, you're not gonna shut me up." I like
Right.
that. I like that a
I
lot.
w- I went to my first, like, protest, I don't know, like, a month ago, right, at the Capitol, and it was like Greg Casar was going to be there, right? And so I thought, I'm just going to hold up this sign against him, and I'm not going to do anything crazy. But sure enough, like, 5 minutes after getting there, I'm running around to this crowd of, like, thousands of people and, like, educating them. And what was so funny about that is, like, everybody was like, "Yeah, we know, we agree with you." And a lot, I'm like, "Well, what are you doing here?" And, like, they're literally paid to be there. So there's another initiative that I have, by the way. Keep free speech free. I want to make it a crime to pay people to protest.
Hmm.
There shouldn't be anything
Like
wrong with that.
astroturfing, of
Yeah.
yeah, because I if someone's gonna protest like that, like, they should be volunteer or doing it on their own volition. I'm sure, like, organizers maybe, like, if you're organizing a protest and you're paid for an organization, that's something else. But, like, basically bribing people to come protest with you definitely is, like, what the rich people do to make it seem like something they're doing is organic.
Right, and, like, just like at the redistricting hearings, it was the same people at every hearing, and they'll straight tell you, like, "No, we're paid to be here." Like, there's, like, so many people that, like, they're literally just paid to go around and protest, like, no, make that illegal. But
I
yeah,
don't
you're
know, I
right, the
feel like I could
organizers,
get a
yeah.
very lucrative job, being a paid protester.
You
But
totally could, but you're gonna have to dye your hair blue and
no,
go shirtless.
yeah, no, no, thank you, I have dignity. I definitely think that that's another thing is that's very lopsided is the conservatives can actually rally together and get people to organically want to support their ideas, whereas the Democrats, like, they basically need to bribe people to come and be crazy. Um, and so
Absolutely,
that's if we're talking about the free marketplace of ideas, that's something, and I'd be remiss not to mention about Charlie Kirk, who passed recently. I mean, he exemplified the free speech of the free marketplace of ideas and really engaging with people no matter where they're from. And I think all of us carry a little piece of him wherever we go.
absolutely. There was one other thing that I would like to change in the justice system, that I forgot to mention with my
Shoot.
human trafficking thing. So, I don't know if you're aware or not, but whenever people are arrested and sent to prison for like being a pedophile or sex offender, things like that, they're put in like special cells and like they're not in general population. So they're protective. They're in like protective custody. So I would like to implement legislation making it a federal law that if you are convicted of a sex crime against a child, that you're put in general population because I do believe that that would deter crime significantly when it comes to pedophilia. Something
Yeah,
I
because
forgot to
there's a whole thing in jails about like someone pulls a paper. Oh, it's a chomo. Beat him up.
Right. Yeah, and my dad, he, unfortunately, he was in prison for 25 years. He went to prison when I was little, but he would tell me that in his 25 years, he would see the same, child molesters come in 3, 4, 5, 6 times in that
Hmm.
25 years that he was there, and so I definitely believe if they knew they were gonna be put in general population, they would think twice before touching a child.
I mean, I think wood chipper is a better is a better idea for that. Better a millstone be tied around the neck and sunk to the bottom of the ocean than to lay a hand on the little ones. But
This is true.
that's just the biblical way. Uh, is there anything else that you want to talk about in regards to your campaign? What you're looking forward to doing, and I mean, there's so much stuff it seems that you're already doing, and that's an approach that I think many politicians should take notice of. Don't just be the person who promises, "I'm going to do this when I get in office." Be the one doing it already.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate that. And yeah, so my long-term goal is I want to open a conservative leadership school down here in Austin, Texas, because we are near the Capitol and things like that. And I am a very firm believer in term limits. I am not going to stay in Congress for a very long time, whether it be I run for higher office or I've even considered doing it in reverse and running for lower office. And by that I mean going from a congresswoman to a state senator to a city councilwoman. And that way I can make sure that my policies that I implemented in Congress are coming back down the right way and
Mm.
following it down to the local level. And I don't think anyone's ever done that. Or, I might get ambitious and run for president. Who knows? I'll see wherever things take me. But I don't know.
Well, let's make sure you win your house district before you try to run for
Right.
president.
Right. But I really want to I guess raise the next generation. I don't know what it is about us millennials. I feel like the political landscape skipped us, and I want to make sure that that doesn't happen going forward. I want to be um unfortunately, I guess like girls are mean. We're mean sometimes, but I've found it really difficult in my local community to get a lot of women, I guess, role models and things like that, and
Mm.
men as well. So I literally like I've had to forge my own pathway because there's not that many people to trust here because I'm a capital. am in the capital city, but I just feel like as women, we should have been working harder all along to lift up other women. And I want to be that for other girls because I haven't had that, you know, in this whole experience.
Yeah, to willingly go through suffering so that way your children and the people after you don't have to suffer in the same way that you did is one of perhaps the most noble causes out there. How are you gonna protect yourself from corruption is one thing I wanted to ask.
I
Because,
love that.
let's say you win and you get all the way up to, the big wig DC. There are gonna be lobbyists. There are gonna be people who are trying to buy you out. There are gonna be people that offer you the cushy life with all the wine parties and the country clubs, and it's gonna take a lot of willpower, being someone who grew up impoverished to say, "No, I'm not taking your money, I don't care." Uh, I'm sure the temptation is there if someone's saying like, "Here, I'll give you $1 million, just betray your principles." You never have to live poor again. You don't have to be in the housing. So, how are you gonna
Right.
protect yourself from those interests that are inevitably gonna try to co-opt you?
Yeah, and, you know, what's funny is I can tell you that people have already been, actively trying to corrupt me,
I'd bet.
sadly enough, but, this is gonna sound a little bad, but remember, I came from corruption, and all of those fine wine dinner and all of those nice parties, like, I've already been through that. It wasn't, like, so much on my own will, but I've already experienced all of those things. I'm not interested in going back and redoing history. And so, especially when it comes to corruption and things like that, I spot it a mile away. Like I smell you. If you walk by me, I smell it. I see it. I lived it. I mean, I mean, you could say that I was an arm or an extension of it, given the position that I
Unwillingly,
was.
though. Like,
Yeah, I
that's
would.
that's not your fault.
Yeah.
You're not choosing that.
Right. And so by my unwilling extension, I mean I understand it. But as far as, people buying me and things like that, I know I had mentioned that I have several federal lawsuits right now. I made I made my list of demands, as if you will, like for my remedies and things like that. And I was like, I want a house in my district. So where I live in the projects, right? But all the houses around me are millions of dollars. I'm like, it's so sad. You're either in poverty or in a $1 million home. And so my list of demands to the city of Boston is I want a house in my district. And that's it. And you guys can go kick rocks because I'm literally going to be going from a place where I have black mold in my ceiling, roaches crawling in my pantries, and needles all on the ground to a house with a fence around it. And that's all I ever need for the rest of my life. And I'll be happy with that. So go ahead and try to bribe me. Good luck with that.
Well,
And by
don't
the way, if you
make
do, I'm
sure,
turning you in.
you know, don't so you've given people, "Okay, if we wanna corrupt Lauren, we need to get her a house." Uh,
No, 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 no. The city of Austin owes me a house. That's coming. Don't
they owe
worry.
it to you. So,
Oh, they owe it to me.
you get
Trust
to
me.
Congress and they're like, "Hey, Congresswoman, we're so sorry we treated you so awfully." Um,
No, I would assume that I'll have my house before I'm in Congress, honestly. I mean, well, even this, so like I filed for Social Security disability in 2020, starting from 2019 because of my PTSD. And so I hadn't been functionable until I finished that UT certification in July of 2023. And that's when I realized, okay, maybe like I'm capable, I can do this. But at the same time, I still haven't been able to get a job. But either way, I'm owed right now from the Social Security Administration over 5 years of back pay. And having four children, that's over $100,000 right there. And so um, I did my last appeals hearing in November of 2024, and I finally just got that decision last week. Okay, so now I can actually file the federal lawsuit from that, and I have a new note from the doctor saying yes, she definitely has, PTSD, and it's
mm,
expected to last like 1 to 5 years, whatever. But even like that money alone would be a down payment on my house, which you're allowed to do. Um, but I
Okay.
no, I'm you
So
can't corrupt me. I
I'm
don't wanna play
happy
those games.
I'm really happy you've been open about all of this, but what would you say to and this is a tough question, so brace yourself. What would you say to someone who says, "Well, I don't want my representative to be, qualifications, PTSD, lives in the projects, got pregnant at 16." All of these things that you're so open about and so brave to talk about could be seen as negatives, especially like as a conservative. You're already making it difficult. You're running against it in this district where there's a silent agreement. Um, but you're also not going to fit in with the other conservatives. So, how would you comfort someone who's like, I don't want my representative to have PTSD? Like, what are they going to do? Like, they're in the trees in the middle of the House floor. Uh,
Right. So I found how to accommodate my PTSD. Two things. One is a lot of my PTSD comes from the fact that I was attacked like so many times, but being able to have my license to carry a firearm, I always open carry.
all
And so
right.
that that supplements my PTSD as well as homeschooling my children, which is really interesting. I would say that I don't have any of the effects of PTSD now. I haven't had a panic attack or anything like that since like the people were knocking on my door in the middle of the night, the homeless like banging on the door, which I think that would panic anyone. But I would also say, especially in the Hispanic and Black communities, how many girls are getting pregnant at 16 years old? If you're going to be a representative, you should represent your population. And the sad facts about it is I'm not alone. I'm not alone in any of my situations that I've explained. There are so many millions and millions of young women that are going through these exact
Mm,
things even right now. And so for anybody to say, oh, well, that makes you a bad person, or I wouldn't want somebody to do that, well, okay, so then what do you want? Do you want the same cookie cutter politician that's been representing us this entire time? People that were literally born and raised to be what they're doing. Look at Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett went to one of the most expensive. I think her school was actually the most expensive university in the world or something, right? Like she had the highest level of education of anybody that I've ever even known, the most expensive. She went to private school her entire life. And so, what is that? You want your politicians to be cookie cutter, or do you want politicians who have true stories of victory, who have actually survived and overcame things that most normal people have not overcome? And, I would also argue, while I am not a veteran as far as working for the United States military, I have experienced a lot of things and a lot of similar trauma that combat veterans do. I mean, in my neighborhood, it has been a war zone at times. I've been shot at, I've been, robbed, I've been in exchanges of not myself, but where people were exchanging gunfire. I've seen people get shot, I've seen people die. I actually just saw a dead body the other day. My kids just saw their first dead body the other day, which is really
oof.
sad. And so I would argue, like, why would you not want someone like me? Because if I can live that, if I can survive that, if I can survive gang violence and overcome human trafficking, and gain the education to be here how I am now and actually speak from a perspective that no one in our government has ever had. There's never been a woman in our government who has had these type of school skill sets. I mean, I am very familiar with organized crime. I'm very familiar with gangs. I understand a lot of war tactics and things like that.
So
I've
you
just
don't have
overcome.
plausible deniability. You don't have the, "Oh, well, I don't know about that." You're like, "This is an issue. We are going to address it. We're gonna have all of this for veterans. This is why homeschooling is important. This is why open carry is important, because those are things that helped you achieve the American dream and overcome all of these negative things that have happened in your life." So you are taking what the enemy meant for evil and using it what God is using for good.
Absolutely, you worded that much better than my long rant. I'm sorry.
It's okay. English major in me and all that. So you're someone. So I guess your entire message is, I'm one of you, and I can help make sure that there doesn't have to be more of us, uh, and actually make sure that the government runs in the way it's supposed to. So
Absolutely.
how can people support you? Um, because a lot of my audience, I mean, it's 126 people.
That's
Uh,
good.
it's something. You know, I don't know how many people are from Massachusetts. It probably ranges all over the place. And feel free to repost this wherever you want. Put it on your website. I don't care. Um, make some clips out of it. But let's say someone wants to support you and spread your message. How would they do that?
Okay, well, two things. One, and I know this is a little weird too. I'm asking before like the financial donations, I'm looking for endorsements. And I'm not seeking endorsements from, big major people. I'm seeking endorsements from people like me, people like you, average everyday people to go and, go on my Facebook, go on my social media and say, "Hey, I endorse Lauren B. Pena for Congress in 2026." And that to me is more powerful than a financial donation. Obviously, finances are important. But I believe that this is a grassroots campaign and it's really going to come from us showing up on the bottom. And my race is a race for the entire nation. It's not about, like I said, Travis County or Austin, Texas, because this will change the trajectory of a lot of things in our nation for the better. But you can also financially support me. I would appreciate that as well. You can go to lauren4congress.com. So that's the number four, lauren4congress.com. I have some of my Senate testimonies and stuff on there. I have a pretty basic website. I know some people are like, "Oh, it's too basic," but I've actually had overwhelming support of it being so basic and so friendly that it doesn't look fake. And so I've had a lot of compliments about my, I guess, being genuine and things like that. But just ultimately, I'm seeking endorsements publicly, and that would be the best thing that anyone can do for me.
Ah, alrighty. So where would one mail said endorsements? I assume there's like a PO box or something on the
Doo, doo,
website.
doo. Yeah,
Oh,
let me
she has
make
to look
sure.
for it.
I don't know if it's on there. Is it on there? Hmm. I didn't know you mailed endorsements. Do you mail them or you just do it on
No,
there?
I think there's several ways you can collect them. Um, I know on your card you had, send checks to this PO box. Um, no, I was more just like, how are you collecting the endorsements publicly? Like a letter, like a written testimony, or just like a public like, oh, they endorse. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you can just send me a message on Facebook and be like, "Hey, I want to endorse you." And then I can go onto Canva and like make a little like picture for social media saying, endorsement alert, like things like that. So I'm not really asking for much help from you guys. You could just send me a private message on social media and say, "Hey, I want to endorse you," and I can create the endorsement to post publicly.
Wonderful. And so you've got you've got how is it November? So you've got more than a year. That's the thing. You've got time, you've got a runway, and you've also got this really sharp clarity of this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm going to do it. And I think a lot of people go into their campaigns with just like, oh, I'm gonna just try to do this and get elected. Whereas you kind of have that sharp, like, no, we're gonna register the people and we're gonna get them out to vote. So kudos on you for that. And
Thank you. I appreciate that.
we'll have to plan another check-in interview in the future to see how you've been doing with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that. I really appreciate you having me on, and I'm available when you are. Really, that's like the biggest thing about my campaign. I want people to know that I'm going to be here and I'm going to be available for them.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Lauren. Uh, again, go to Lauren for Texas, right? .com
Lauren
for
for
like the number.
Congress.
Lauren for
Lauren for
Congress.
Congress.
And I'll put that in the description to support. Uh, make sure to just subscribe and spread the calling. Have a good day.